Hi, this is Sheila with Conscious Conversation Central, and today is Friday, September the 21st, 2018, and I am with my gal pals, my posse, Busy Rieger, Busy B. Rieger, and Lisa Flamino Russian. Yes, is that thing on now?
Hi.
Ooh, so the energy is running really high, and has been all day. And so we're going to talk about, I don't even know what made you decide, what made you feel into pulling the portion of what we're going to talk about, your portion of the Gaia Portal that, you know, because I asked to go back one, but what prompted you to want to go there?
Well, actually, it was one of those things we were talking before that about kind of forgetting mid-sentence and stuff. So the first one came in when I was at my agility trial last weekend. And I don't have a lot of wherewithal there, but I felt it come in. So I went, pulled out the laptop, got it, said, great, that's it. And then at the same time, it was, said, that's a conversation we need to have. And I went and looked up and just grabbed the links quick that I referred to because I said, there's going to be some zingaroos on, in beings on that one. So I put that all together, and then the moment I landed back at work, it was all so. And then the other one came out 4 days later. So that time I actually grabbed that one because I was at this computer and put it down. So I'd forgotten, even though I'd done all the prep work for bringing that into a conversation, I just put the other one. So it's actually both of them. So it was a big nudge.
Well, I wanted to, I'm sure some folks will recall it, but I wanted to real quick here pull it up because I did pull it up on my, on one of these tabs over here. Okay, the first one that we were talking about, the one that was that came out on the 15th,
published at 10:10 a.m.
At 10:10 a.m. Mentoring of all planetary ascenders begins in earnest. Standards of vibrational requirements are raised. Schools are selected. Choices are made. The harvest is near. So, did we want to talk about that first, or did we want to read the other one and then talk about the two of them together?
Probably read the other one because I think they go together and talk about the two together.
Okay, this one was issued on the 19th. Now, I don't have the time, whatever.
9:09.
9:09. Oh, that's interesting. On the 19th of September, 9:09. Separations for the next phase are completed. All energetic ties to the past are cut. Higher light enters. Strengths are amplified. New pathways begin. And I want to say that when I saw the first one, I myself was a bit triggered, not to the degree I'm sure that a lot of beings may have been. But, there's been a lot of misinformation and disinformation and manipulation and spin on the whole harvest portion of that. And there's been a lot of, movies seeding the consciousness about what harvest would look like. There's anything from rapture to aliens taking everybody off the planet or whatever. There's all, Jupiter Ascending did a real good number on that one. So I myself had to sit with that a bit, and I was like, okay, well, wait a minute. And actually, it just, when we were talking about this particular one, it actually hearkened me back to something that happened earlier in the week. And I'm seeing now how that's even tying into that for me. Lisa and I had a conversation about frequential matches. I don't know that this is going to resonate for everyone, but for me, and you both of you kind of helped me just now with that. You know, we are harvesting the fruit of our labors, of our integration, right? Both of you kind of alluded to that when we were going here, and I was like, oh, okay, hold up. That also made me feel, in regards to frequential match, that has something to do with it. I had an experience. It sounds like it's not going to have anything to do with this, but trust me, it does. I had an experience earlier in the week where I was drawn to a particular tool, a magazine, and it had a graphic in it. And I don't know why I was drawn to it. I don't normally look at those kinds of magazines or anything, but I knew that there was something in it for me. And I even brought it home with me. And even if there was, and a friend of mine reached out and said, wait a minute, is there a possibility that there's something attached to that? Because it was a horrific graphic. And I'm sure it's out there by now because it was in an entertainment magazine. But I now see that my frequential match wasn't a frequent, even if there was something attached to that, I never felt it. I never saw it. It never came into my reality. But it was helping me to see a lot, to tie in the frequential, what being a frequential match looks like and feels like. And what you guys just said there about harvesting the fruits of our labor, it feels like the same kind of thing for me. And I'm not sure if I'm tying it in properly or not. But like when I heard that about the harvest in the Gaia Portal, I didn't go into fear, but it did cause me to question, okay, wait a minute. Why is this saying harvest? Oh, and why do I have an issue with the word harvest? Right? And then, of course, thinking to all of the things I've been programmed and conditioned and manipulated into feeling and thinking in regards to harvest. And then, you know, I was like, oh, okay, maybe that has something to do with it. Because I also know that, hey, I like a harvest of apples or a harvest of cherries or a harvest of strawberries. And there's all kinds of ways to hold a thing, which is where I guess I'm seeing that frequential match or not a frequential match in that. Did I make sense in that?
Yeah, although it's a much more complex and broader thing than just frequential matches. So, I mean, not just this, all of everything is. That's one very important part of it, but it's bigger than all of that. So, it's interesting that you brought up that you were triggered because, and then you just now said, well, because we were talking about, before we went on camera, the harvesting, and Lisa and I rattled off a bunch of things, and we're like, cool. So totally different. But think about it. Even if you're religious and in an awful lot of different denominations, right? Then there is a lot about the harvest, and a lot of it is fear triggering. A lot of it is worthy or not, holier than thou. A lot of it is vengeful, and and a lot of it kind of mirrors into some of the harvesting of the harvest that you grew, and the wheat, and sifting the wheat from the chaff, and yada yada yada. And yeah, so lots of people go to farmers market. Farmers markets are big, so there's a fall harvest. There's fall harvest days, so and we have Thanksgiving, and so there's a lot about harvesting. But as a general rule, especially in here, I can guarantee you that most beings who read it did not think, oh, cool, a whole bunch of strawberries, or, you know, harvesting the abundance of what it is that I've, you know, cleared.
The fruit of one's labor.
Right. They went the other way about they were the harvest and going to get you know, kind of a thing.
Well,
so
yeah, I mean,
that actually, for me, that's one of the reasons that I see it fitting into what you're talking about with the other thing the other day you brought home, because that's a harvest of the entirely different self, service to self harvest, and that whole vibrational frequency and the frequential match.
okay, so now all of a sudden I got a little confused there. Are you saying that there are two distinctly different harvests?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, no, I wasn't expecting that. You know, well, I mean, I really wasn't. This is the first I've heard this, or, you know, I'm open to it. There could be five.
Well,
six,
I mean,
seven.
just look at, you have, this is the time of ascension and the time of descension. It's the time, and you have people, beings, whole, you know, big groups that are polarized as service to self and polarized as service to other. And so the polarized service to other is in the whole ascension process and the harvest of that. And the polarized service to self is in the descension process and the harvest of that. They're essentially trying to keep it simple. They actually are the same thing. They're just polarized in a different way. So if you're polarized service to self, the harvest is a great thing. It's just as if you're.
I'm sorry, the harvest is a what?
Is a great thing. The same, the abundance is everything that we were talking about. It's just flipped in the other way. So go ahead.
Sorry, didn't mean to talk over you.
Yeah.
It's calling to mind the sentence before that, which was choices are made.
Yeah.
So if you were to follow that through, the harvest of your choices, or, you know, choices are planting seeds in this analogy of the fruit of one's labor. So it's sort of, this is the culmination of all that you've worked for. Mm-hmm. And whatever that may be is entirely based, I guess, upon the choices made.
Yeah, and in that one, for me with the Gaia Portal is that, yeah, you're absolutely right. And so choices are made. So each being is making choices. Now is the absolute choice point moment. And there's been lots of kind of moments to think about that and look at that and decide, and people have been deciding, and, you know, that's helped how they had been expanding and all that kind of stuff. And now because these are both come out right before the solstice, which is tomorrow. So again, it's a bookend, but it's also the cap on the whole Lion's Gate and the trinity of the eclipses that was prior to that, right? So this is, you know, the spring equinox, and then the summer solstice, kind of the solstice, both solstices bookend what happened in between. But not only is this a bookend energetically, it's a cap, you know, putting like the cherry on top and putting, you know, put the cap on something. So it's really, it's an accent aigu.
The completion, really.
Yes, because it's a shifting. Remember I had said in discussing that I was nudged to bring this forward for us to play with, because it was a demonstrable, they were a demonstrable turning of the page.
Yes, I think demarcation is the word you used.
Yeah.
And I like that because you're right. It is a, okay.
Yeah. And for me, what and I would describe he's lamenting to his bear that mom was, not paying attention to him. Anyways, the way that I would describe where they talk here about the harvest is near, I feel it on different levels. So one, it's the fall, and it's the from a linear perspective, it's the fall, and it's the the fall vernal equinox, and there is a time of harvest and all the bounty from the summer. Okay. And so from that level, and you can look in stuff in biblical things, and there's that as well. Then Lisa was talking about, the bounty of your harvest of your labor. So that could be on the linear. It could also be on your working within and on the integration and all that. And that's definitely how I see that. And also think about what I just said on the first count of that, of the harvest, the bounty of the summer. Well, so think about this particular summer energetically, and all the bounty that came in with all the new energies that have never before been on this planet. This planet has not swum through these energies before, and all the changes and all of the bounty that came in from that then has been percolating into our soil and to the fruits that we are given forth, and all of our abilities and special powers and all that kind of stuff, or here, as they refer to it in the second one, strengths are amplified because they're already yours there. So that's another part of it. Then the harvest is near too, because it is a harvesting of those who, and as you had said, Lisa, matches with the line before, choices are made, because it is talking about harvesting the predominant frequency, vibration, and trajectory timeline that the choice was made. And all those on that, are part of the harvest. So in other words, they are if you're excited and you're harvesting in the fall and you're excited about the bounty, and look how gorgeous those strawberries are, how wonderful the potatoes are, they're beautiful gems, right? It's delicious because you can save them, put them by, and eat them, and they taste great. And okay, well, it's the same. So use that again as metaphor, because everything is metaphor. It's the same thing. So each of the beings, the multitude of beings that have made that choice and are on that trajectory, they are all those beautiful gems that are to be harvested and brought forward to the bounty of the new pathways that are beginning, which is the very last line in the second one, which that's why they kind of go together. And the energetic timing was such that there was space in between. So that's getting up there on the levels, and so again, this is not accurate because it's a linear way to look at it for our linear brains. But I would say that feeling into it, there's one other layer that's a bit more expansive, which is very similar to what I just talked about, but it's from the perspective of all that is harvesting, and all that is harvesting all of the all. So all beings in all of Source's multiverses, and all of the trajectories that they've all gone out, and that because there's a big jump of expansion. So it's harvesting the energy, and it's harvesting the deliciousness of all those beings, all of them, no matter what might ascribe characteristics to them or character. All those beings have gone out and gone forward. And with this jump, it's a tsunami of expansion, which in essence is a tsunami of love that's gone out. And so Source is harvesting all of that, right? and they're all this wonderful bounty of jewels that can then give forth. So again, if we look at a linear harvest, it's the sustenance, wow, these potatoes, these whatever they are, you have a feast, you have friends, you have connection, you have camaraderie, you're subject to one another, there's relationships, right? So all that kind of stuff. And yes, that's not the linear commercialized one, but that's the true essence of it. So you take that to the expanded version of the metaphor. So source and all, because all is source, is reaping the benefit of all of this harvest to bring forth the planting of the new paths, because we're all going on new paths, because we're going in new trajectories, because we've come with a completion of these trajectories. That's just how I feel into it.
Well, no, I'm not nearly as beautiful an illustration of what you presented there, but yeah, I came to that for myself after some sitting with that, and I recognized immediately, however, I will say that twinge, that little momentary twinge, I knew that it stemmed from a lot of different programming and conditioning and manipulation and spin and all of that, because it actually exists in lots of different places, not just religion. It also exists in the disclosure community and the UFO community and the spirituality community. It is everywhere in terms of harvest. And so rather than allowing myself to go into any sort of pre-programmed immediate condition over it, it's like, okay, wait a minute, let's look at this, and
so two things that pop up to play with a little bit from what you just said. So you were feeling into it, and you listed kind of a whole bunch of sectors, we'll say, in the awakening that play with it, and could be on a negative quote unquote bent or a positive quote unquote bent, right? And so not just religion. So remember what I said at the beginning of that there's the harvest, and it's held each collective, and there's many within each one, but each collective, right? Each individual within the collectives. Again, go back to the thing where choices are made. So the choices is service to self or service to others, right? There's polar. So there is the harvest, and much of what I laid out is in the very really oversimplifying, but to kind of hang our hats on it for a moment. It's the same for both. So one is descending with that harvest, and one is ascending with that harvest, depending on their choices and their frequency and where they're polarized.
Right. No, I mean, I get what you're saying. I absolutely get it. I'm saying that I personally have not been exposed to anything good from harvest, with the exception of, pumpkins and strawberries. And that's, whenever in any one of those categories, that's why I said I've only really been exposed to harvest is a good thing when we're talking about eating, but not so much on the other, it's really only been in the last little bit where abundance took on a more quantum meaning for me, rather than, money.
Counting your poker chips.
Yeah, counting your poker. Yeah.
Yeah, the big stack and a bigger stack. Yeah. Well, the
exactly.
other part, I was just going to finish the other part to what you were saying, so I don't forget. You had said And probably where you just came in would be good. I don't remember where I was hanging it on there, but I wanted to remind everybody that because we all have been tinkered with in the genetics and so on and so forth, and that's been from various beings and various intentions, but part of that would be definitely from the service to self, and with reptilian DNA and all of those kinds of things. So that's within us as well, and that's where choices are made comes in, because there is a harvest which is near, and one can choose which harvest it is they're partaking in, and there is tremendous bounty and expansion of that, but it's just of a certain vibrational frequency and a trajectory, right? So this arm is one's going down this way, and a trajectory in two different ways. And so the reason that came forward is because there's a little ping within all of us, not just in the culture and how we're brought up, or you might be reading about the harvest of this, that, and the other thing from people who are ascribing it in a nefarious, or you're going to get eaten kind of a thing, which is spot on if you're looking in one trajectory. But I'm saying for all beings, there is a little ping in that, because that's the holding of us. That is a part of us. And that's part of actually the harvest is in choosing. You're choosing which direction, which trajectory that you're going on, and then which harvest you will partake in, and which brings you to a whole new path. And so again, from a very linear perspective, they look completely opposite.
Well, what kept coming in for me in part of this conversation too is in regards to those choices, and in regards to service to self and service to other and trajectory, it's all the same. Love or fear?
Yes.
Love or fear?
Yes.
Service to self is fear. Service to others is love.
Mm-hmm.
And those are also the trajectories.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what the choices are: fear and love.
Mm-hmm. Expansion and constriction, ascension and descension. Yeah. And again, this is all the way that I'm speaking of it, is actual. So again, looking at it from a multi-locational consciousness perspective, which is what I hold. On the one hand, a perspective which is a narrow focus, it's linear and it's absolutely spot on. We're talking realistic specificity, particularity here with what we just discussed. It's also then, widen out, and it's a metaphoric representation of the paths to the totality of expansion in its totality. And then you can see it in the toroidal, where it all comes around and it all comes together. So that's not the most expansive view, but that's enough of a separation and expansion levels to help to hold it that way.
Well, yeah. Well, sensing, a lot of toroidal shapes actually as it widens out.
Yes.
It's all toroidal fashion. That's exactly what you described earlier. Anyway, as it all, the in breath, as it returns to source for that out breath again, it's all the double toroidal shape. It's all the alpha, the omega.
Right.
And
it's just how finite your perspective is. You're looking at it, you bring it, down to.
right.
So
Where's your temperature?
Yeah, it's absolutely accurate to say this is real with real demonstrable choices and event horizons and responses to those choices, and that you will see, feel, touch, experience in your physical reality. So that is absolutely correct. And so that is a very narrow, tight aperture focus perspective. And then you can, so that's part of what will color a lot of people's kind of scene set or stuff that's going by on the road as they go down, that color their experience and their trying to describe what I'm seeing. The billboards on the road down the highway that they're going on will have different flavors, and those that they meet along the road will have distinctly different flavors, depending on what they choose. But that's a narrow, and then there are other perspectives that go into that, and this goes to in the first one, the first one on the September 15th. The second line, standards of vibrational requirements are raised. So again, because we're looking at the whole picture. So you could look at, if I'm doing linear, the whole picture. So the ascension and the descension, right? So standards of vibration requirements are raised. They both get raised. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, because there is no up and down. So right. in a toroidal, yeah, I got you. Okay.
Right. So they get raised, which means that another way to hold that is, okay, fine. You brought the poker chips, so we're going to go with even though I'm not really much of a poker player, we'll go with a poker metaphor. When you're playing a game, you can, if someone bumps the ante, right, and says, I raise you, and so you meet the raise or you call, right? So that's part of what this is referring to, is you meet the raise or you call. You go with the expansion or you hop off the planet, would be another more direct way to say it. And then, which then after schools are selected, then choices are made and so on and so forth. So then the first line of the second one on the 19th, separations for the next phase are completed. So again, each being is sorting and winnowing themselves and all within them, and they're sorting and winnowing, and they're separating themselves because it's an inside job. And when you go all the way in, where are you? you're at the starting point, which is source. So this is not being done to each. We are doing this. It's an inside job. And it comes right from the, I don't know, pick a linear term, which is not accurate, but, you know, the top, the center point, the bullseye, you know, whatever you want. It's where you started.
The alpha point, the 0 point, the whatever.
Pick one. You're going in the right direction anyways. Even if, and this is important, I got nudged to say this now, even if, so people are thinking, oh, well, you know, only go back to source if you choose the high road or the light road, or, you know, this. No, all roads lead, you know, unlike on this planet about them leading to Rome, which actually is a correct euphemism, and everybody's going to find that out pretty quick here. But, you know, all roads lead to source. So however you may characterize the road one is on, they're all going the same place, because that's what we all are. Because that's the totality of love. There is no, you know, dunce cap or black hat or red X or whatever. And then the other one I wanted to touch on, well, there's two. The next line after what I just read about the separations for next phase are completed. All energetic ties to the past are cut. Okay, so what does that, is there a picture that comes up? There's a picture that's coming up for each of you. What, can you guys give voice to what that picture is on that line there?
Well, for me personally, I've had some of that on my own, you know, not even taking the Gaia portal into account. So for me, immediately what that feels like, I mean, because I've been cutting cords, energetic cords all over the place for myself. You know, I have had energetic ties to other beings that I wish to no longer have. And so I've been doing a lot of what I call cord cutting. And so that when I read that, that's what it brought up for me, is that, and it's not just, and when I read that, it felt like not just, well, I mean, again, for me, there was a lot of synchronicity in that, as on the 11th, I'm pretty sure I experienced, well, actually it's happened more than once recently, a timeline collapse. And, you know, so for me, there's a whole lot in that. There's layers in that, but that there's both generational karma ties that no longer feel connected to me. There's other energetic ties in this incarnation that just don't feel connected to me any longer. So that's where I went with that.
Yeah, that was beautiful, Sheila. That was really good, because that is kind of how thorough and all encompassing these energetics are. And it seems to me that it's everything. There isn't anything I could point to that is untouched. And because of that, it feels to me it's the completeness with the, okay, so for me, I'm on the verge of going multi-dimensional, right? Not that I haven't been, but that now, like, I'm fully with that now, and that the ties to the little me are being cut, is how it feels for me. So I was kind of feeling that, like my tethers on my hot air balloon are being severed.
Yeah.
So
yeah, you guys gave beautiful illustrations with examples from your own lives that of exactly what this is saying and more. It's one of those things, you know, again, every being will feel into it and they'll get out of it. And then you take all of those beings and you add all of that together, and then you have the beginning ball of what is, because it's multidimensional and it's quantum, and it is not past, present, or future. It's in this. These are in the still point. And these messages are in the still point. So it actually expands from the moment that it went out as an energetic envelope. So for me too, and in addition to everything that you guys just illustrated, is that it's also one of the reasons that the past is emphasized. All energetic ties to the past are cut, because actually the whole construct of time has dissolved. And so they could also add, you know, a comma and say the future are cut as well, because it is the zero point. So Sheila gave an example of her saying, you know, beings in her now moment that she's cutting ties to, and from the past, you know, and that, but since you're multidimensional, so now look at that. So look at it from the quantum, so how your quantum timelines and realities go out, and how all of your multidimensional, so your higher selves, and remember, because all of this is imploding into you. So all of those are cut. In essence, they're all coming in. If there's something is cut, then the separation is gone. Because you, by having a past thing, right, and an energetic which materializes it, it brings it into matter, and it's cut, then it collapses back into itself. So we've talked about before where, you know, people talking about meeting their star family, this, that, and the other thing. Well, and that is you in the future. Okay. Well, the same thing. Those are coming in as well for each being, and that's what's happening. Okay. It's pretty cool. And the other line I wanted to play with is well, the three, there are actually three different sentences, but to me they're the beginning of the sentence, the middle of the sentence, and the end of the sentence, you know, if we take out the periods.
Yeah.
But then again, I can do a lot of things, but spelling and grammar, never bother. So highlight, higher lights enter, and your strengths are amplified, because the amplification waves, the amplification carrier waves are in the higher light, which comes in and infuses from the inside out you, right? And it's amplified. So it's like, you could say you're on this big stage set, and all the lights have been maybe not dark but dim, and you know, maybe just a few stage lights, but not stage lights. What's the other word for it? What's it? Maybe it is stage lights, but not the lights on the stage, but the stage light, where there's just a little light bulb here or there. It gives a little bit of light, see what's going on. So anyways, there's a little bit of light.
Lights?
Huh?
Yeah.
Spots?
Yeah,
No.
not the spots, just the stage lights.
No.
So in other words, just like, you know, the back hallway light kind of a thing. So you're on a big stage set, and with the higher light coming in. So light is visible light to our linear eyes. Then there are also all sorts of other light vibrational frequencies that are coming in. You know, a lot of people have seen probably the stories about the observatories being shut down, all, you know, kind of a whole bunch of them together, and they specialized in looking at the sun. And one of the reasons they were shut down was so to mask and slow down a little bit for a concerted release in a more event-driven timing. We'll say that. And all related to the sun, which all relates to what was actually being done there, was to the higher light enters. So the higher light, the light was changed, and and tuned so that the pulses of light emanating from the sun, which is actually, you could think of it as a big tunnel with our sun that we see, you know, on our end of the tunnel, and this is just linear metaphor, and the central sun is, you know, down by the other tunnel, which is streaming all the light through. And heretofore, we haven't been ready for all that light, and now we are not only on a physical, mental, but emotional in requesting it, and by the work that we've been doing, the inner work and integration and all that kind of stuff. So we've actually called ourselves forth to go come. So we've called us to go come into the place to, we'll say, use the tools that we created to let those pulses come through. So that's what this is referring to, is that the higher light enters, which is also, you could say, beaming or streaming or carrying the carrier waves of the next, remember this, the way I hold this is the middle of the sentence, with the strengths are amplified. So your strengths, some people call them your gifts, some people call them your superpowers. But I like the way that it's phrased, strengths, here, because they're innate to you. So, you know, we've all got superpowers, so they're just their strengths. I mean, you know, it's where we gravitate to. That means we have others that we may not gravitate because maybe we haven't played with those in different existence. Anyway, so that's, and then the last part of the sentence is new pathways begin. So again, since all of this is multidimensional and quantum, and you can see it filtered down at the very linear base, narrow aperture, you can see all the new pathways that are, it's like, you know, the new metaphors for paths or roads or walkways, you know, however you want to hold that, are actually unfolding. And yeah, some of them have, you know, stuff overturned on them, and you got to, you know, pick this up, move that off the way, or do some sweeping and stuff like that. But that's actually what's going on. So this is actually describing, as they always do, exactly what is going on internally with all beings from all multidimensional levels on all of our bodies, you know, mental, emotional, electromagnetic, all of that, energetic. And because the out there is only out there when we put it out there, right? From not only from an individual, but then the collective, and so on and so forth, because this is not only from the individual, but the collective, and so on and so forth, and not just the human collective, but, you know, the all collective. This is also giving you a good news article about laying out exactly what's happening. And I don't mean as good versus bad. I mean good as in actually not covering and obfuscating and, you know, distracting, kind of a thing.
Right. No, I get you. I felt something else in there too, in that particular one. For me, all of these messages from the Gaia portal seem to be to speak to me on more than one level. Sometimes I get the level right then. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I can feel that there's more than one level to it, but I don't comprehend it.
Mhm.
Sometimes I can feel the edge of the comprehension, but I'm not standing in the direct center of the comprehension. I saw that for myself today in a conversation that we were having earlier. It is absolutely possible to feel as though one sort of comprehends something and then have that aperture pop wide open. So, okay. Yeah, I mean, okay. Oh, okay. You know, because that's that's kind of what happened for me earlier today. But so that has happened to me a couple of times with the Gaia portal. I'm not quite sure what this one is trying to share with me, but there was something in that higher light enters, strengths are amplified, new pathways begin. Maybe it was for me personally, but it felt like it also had to do with the molecular changes
Yeah, your
that the
DNA.
light is affecting
It's
within the DNA.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So yeah, that was something I sensed in that.
Well,
So it is a multiple. It's a
yeah. Well, and think about what we've just played with right here, right? Well, we left maybe 90% of it out. Because you know what I mean? Because it goes on. I mean, I can look at him now and I go, oh yeah, I forgot that, and oh look at that, oh yeah, and, oh huh, right, see, you know, that's the way it is. It's funny. Someone asked me a long time ago, and I've kind of put on various Gaia portals, put little notes at the bottom to, you know, someone says, well, what does it mean, or how do you read it? And one of the ways that I describe it that seemed to be the most helpful, it is you kind of look at it sideways. So because then you're not reading it with the think part of your brain. It's almost like you see it over here, and you turn and you catch something. You know, you catch something out of your corner of your eye, and you can see more color. You can see a flash. You can see something that isn't there to the regular eye right in front of you, where it's in essence linear. Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like I keep coming back to, for me, everything has to be held like this. Because the minute you try to do this, you can't, that's what you're describing for me.
Yeah.
It has to be allowed to just be and present, unfold.
Yeah.
Itself for you in whatever manner.
Yeah. I mean, you know, a very good way.
Yeah.
Unfold, yes. And you could say, well, when you look at this, what do you behold? Where is the light? Where is the color? Which word or sentence or phrase, which part of it highlights? And then when you get those highlights and you look at them in different lines, okay, what is the pattern and picture from? So maybe there's part in line 1 and 2 and 3, and where is it? And actually just look at the highlighted parts. And that brings you a whole nother picture. And then when you play with that whole other picture, then you look at it again kind of sideways at all of it, and you go, wow, look at, you know, at that. That's how it goes. One of the reasons that I would classify, these are always, there's different categories on the IUV, and these have always been classified as absolute data, because for me, going on 6+ maybe 7 years now, I think it is, might be a little bit longer, at least 6+, but I think it's a little longer. that they've come out, they've always been spot on. They've always been kind of like, you know how if you have a newspaper and there's the early edition, you know, that sometimes it doesn't have, you know, some of the meat that people want, but also a lot of times the early edition will actually kind of foreshadow or give you a teaser of an event that's coming up, and then you get the full version and you see it. So these have been a very good way of doing that. And even when I've looked at it and gone, wow, this is lots of stuff here, lots coming, I have no idea what it means. I can't grasp it on the linear, but it's good. And, you know, and a lot of times I would maybe print them out, and when I was first feeling into them, I would print them out and use crayons and draw. And because they were very important signposts and markers, and usually there's a number of people that I work with on things, and when we read them, you know, you read the whole thing through, and then you read the first line, and there's many beats of a pause, and then you read the first line again, and then you read the second, same thing through. So that's kind of a vocalized way to look at it obliquely. Anyways.
Well, they're multidimensional.
Yeah.
So you have to really sit with it and feel. For me, I feel my way into that message. And what I have found so intriguing about it for myself on a personal level is it's always right on time with what's happening in my world. It's never any mistake. And I feel like there's keys and hidden gems in there if you can unlock what's not being said, or sort of what's reading between the lines, which is, again, sitting with it and feeling into the different layers and levels and how it interacts even with what's happening to me in my world and internally too. So it's kind of fun to play with it. Even if you don't understand it, you can still feel into it a bit and play that way.
And if, you know, sometimes another hints I gave was, you know, if there's a certain word that you're not sure, but or it's kind of highlighting for you, so go look at the definition of it, or go to the derivation of the word. And again, that's kind of an oblique way, and some things will pop out to you. One of the things that you just illustrated, Lisa, is that it's a tailor-made energetic envelope, an energetic message for each individual being. And of course, that envelope is unique. It is also, so everything I just said about that is also for various, you could describe it as various collectives within that. And that is, again, specific. But it's also for the broader collective, and it is for all. So it is all of those things in all layers. And I don't know if there's different kind of, you know, stories, magical stories and stuff, where there is there's one I just read recently where, you know, there's a being, and the being is happens to be a queen of the good sort, not the, you know, so this is a magical queen. And for each being that was part of this, you know, this celebration, this meeting that was going on, the queen appeared in a certain way to them. Okay. So certain color, hair, certain voice, certain language that they spoke, right? All that kind of stuff. And so in the story, this group of people got together, and they were saying, oh yeah, it was really cool. And, you know, her hair was, you know, tightened, and her eyes were, what? No, her hair was black, you know. So, but she was also speaking different languages. So it is kind of like where you think of the phrase, now you're talking my language. Now you're speaking my language. Well, this is the same kind of a thing. The biggest kind of stumbling block may happen is when we look at it from a particularly linear think way. Then we then we're going to miss a lot of it, because that's as Sheila talked about, that's that grabbing. You know, we want to grab it with our brain. We want to put it through our filter. And that brain, that ego mind, that filter is actually the programming, and that's the mechanism of the programming and all of that. And so it will get some of it, but just a very tiny, it's think of it as a sieve, and the holes on the sieve are very, very, very tiny. So just little tiny bits will come through.
Wow.
We were going to add something on to this, but I don't think we should.
I was going to say, no. This one's been really rich in and of itself.
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I always feel that way about Gaia Portal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, is there anything else that either one of you would like to add to this one?
Nope. I'll put the links to the, post.
Yes, I absolutely will. I'm going to put the link to the Gaia Portal directly in the show more section of the video, so that, should you like to go take a look. Of course, it's always usually busy when she gets that nudge. It's usually always on the IUV as well. That's to be honest, I've seen the Gaia Portal here and there over the years, but not nearly like I have since I've been involved in, and I check the IUV on the regular, so I see it there.
It's funny you mention that, because I can feel when one's about to come out, and I'll go and go, okay, I know it's there, and it hasn't come, I can't quite get it yet. And someone, Heather, will say, did it come yet? I said, no, I'm still waiting. I'll send it, as soon as it comes. So you can feel it coming, because you can, because we're multidimensional, so we can feel this anyways. But that's one of the ones that's a big, it taps you on the shoulder. If I'm because they come out GMT time. So I can be sound asleep and wake up, okay, and kind of turn a little light on so I can see the keyboard, because my time.
Well, and for those that might be questioning themselves in regards to what BZ is relating right there, I have to say, I feel we all get nudges. It's whether or not we're paying attention to them at all. Because once I start beginning to notice them, that's the first step, is the noticing them. Because, then I was, if I'd have just followed that nudge.
Yeah, if only.
Yeah, if only. And there's still some of that sometimes, not going to lie. So, but that's what BZ's talking about there. I think we all get them.
We all do. Absolutely.
Just myriads of them. Right. We're just not, I will say that I was not, it's not something that, first of all, in a lot of cases, the conditioning and the programming, we're not trained or feel free to follow that nudge usually. Or, there's a lot around that too. So, because I heard someone out there, how does BZ know? How does she get that nudge? Well, it's that long time following, noticing it and following them. I know that for myself now. not that I always practice it, but
well, I think this would be
I'm getting better at it.
This would be another great conversation to have, as on its own, but just to follow up on that question that someone asked, because, you get to it a different, it gets to be more in the flow for you, feeling them and listening to them. And I like to sleep, and I can be sound asleep, and there's not much that I will go from sound asleep, snuggled with my cat, to and walk in the thing. And, and I can, other things may wake me up, tickle me out here, and I go, no, I don't need to, because I can tell I don't need to answer that phone if I'm on call, which I am a lot with work. No, I don't need to pay attention to that. I don't need, and it takes a nanosecond and I go right back to sleep. But I just want to say, with the nudges of certain sorts, where they're coming from my soul, that's part of me being trained and proving myself, not me testing them, but them testing me testing me. As part of the training to then be able to get more and bigger nudges and to follow through, because I will follow through, because when the phone rings, literally and figuratively, and metaphorically, I answer and say, yeah, got it,
Right. Well, thank you for that. I just wanted to throw that in there at the end. I know it's not really part of the conversation we had, and maybe we should go into it even more at some point. But
yeah, because there's a lot of how-tos and toolboxes we can do with that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you both so much. This has been lovely, as usual. And I'll have all the usual things in all the usual places, along with the link to the Gaia portal itself.
Two links.
Okay. Oh, for both of those, you're right. Okay, I will do that. Okay, so till next time.
Much love.
Mm-hmm.